So let me paint you a picture. Your tomato seedlings are looking incredible indoors. They're green, they're vibrant, and they're full of promise. You're feeling like a pretty good gardening genius right now. Then you plant them out in the garden, and a few days later, they're wilted, they're sad, they're withered, and they're dying. Sound familiar? Well, you're not alone. It's actually one of the most common soul-crushing frustrations for any new gardener. You did everything right. You started the seeds, you gave them plenty of light, and you watered them religiously. And for what? A pathetic, wilted mess. Here's the good news. This is almost always avoidable. I've been starting tomatoes from seeds for about 7 straight years now. And trust me, I have made every single mistake in the book. I've learned from all those failures, so you don't have to. The difference between a garden that's bursting with tomatoes and a bare patch of disappointment, it often just comes down to a few key moments in these plants' young life. Let's get to it. I'm going to show you the 3 fatal mistakes that beginners make. The ones that pretty much guarantee that these you will get 0 fruit out of. I'm going to walk you through a simple, game-changing fixes that will actually lead to a thriving tomato patch that you can actually be proud of all season long. The first mistake, and maybe the most fatal mistake, happens before these tomato plants even get out to the garden soil. A mistake of skipping off the hardening off process is critical. Think about it. Your seedlings have been living the good life. They've been in here, they've been pampered like babies, chilling indoors in a nice controlled temperature room, shielded from all the wind, under the gentle light of either grow lights or these soft lights in the greenhouse. So their leaves, they have a very, very thin, delicate skin or cuticle. Taking them almost from this 5-star resort and just tossing them straight out into that harsh, unpredictable outdoors is like asking a newborn to do a marathon. The intense, unfiltered sunlight, the constant wind, it's a complete shock to their system. The result is what you see often: wilted, sun-scorched leaves that turn ghostly white or brown, and a stressed plant either dies or it's stunted for several weeks after. Let me be clear, this isn't an optional step. It's non-negotiable boot camp that lets your plant actually toughen up before you go out there and left on their own defenses. Hardening off literally thickens these cuticles and creates a natural sunblock and a barrier that stops the wind from sucking that moisture out. It's how you turn that soft seedling into a garden-ready warrior. So here's the fix, a simple 7-day training for these tomatoes that you want to do. You want to start about a week before we're going to plant them out. Once the daytime temperatures are actually consistently above 60 degrees Fahrenheit or 15 degrees Celsius. So on days 1 and 2, we're going to find a spot that is in full shade, protected from the wind. A covered porch or a big leafy tree is perfect. You want to take these seedlings out to that spot for just 2 to 3 hours, and then you're going to bring them back inside. You've actually just given them a little taste of what the real world's going to be like. That ambient temperature and that gentle breeze. Now, days 3 and 4, that's time for a little bit more sun, but only the gentle kind. Take them out for a few hours, but only during the early morning or late afternoon. That midday sun, it is still way too intense. So move them back into the shade during the hottest part of the day. You can actually stretch the outdoor time to 4, maybe 5 hours now. They still have to come inside at night. Now for days 5 through 7, they're getting a little bit tougher. Now you can actually leave them out for most of the day, for about 8 hours, even in the full sun. The most important part here is nighttime. Now, as long as the forecast says that it's going to stay above 50 degrees Fahrenheit or 10 degrees Celsius, you can let them stay out overnight. If it's going to have a cold snap or something coming like that, either bring them in or toss an old bed sheet or something and give them a little bit of cover. Through this whole week, don't let them ever get thirsty. Keep that soil consistently moist A thirsty plant is a stressed plant, and what we're doing here is trying to lower the stress, not add to it. So after a week of this, your tomato plants are going to be resilient, tough, and ready for their new home. Now that you've hardened off your plants like a pro, they're tough and they're ready. Now it's time to plant them. This is where mistake number 2 sneaks in. Planting your tomatoes too shallow. Most people just dig a hole big enough to cover this root ball, and they plant the seedling as level with the garden soil, which that's okay for petunias or marigolds. That's exactly what you want to do. But for tomato, that's a massive missed opportunity that could cost your strength, stability, and you guessed it, your fruit. So here's the secret that actually separates the rookies from the tomato masters. Tomatoes have the superpower. Look really close, fuzzy little hairs that grow all up along the side of here. Those are called adventitious roots. And every single one of those hairs has a potential to become a brand new root. It's the same process that we done when we separated the seedlings when they were tiny. And if you didn't see that video, I'm going to link it down in the description so you can watch it as well. So when you plant these things shallow, you're going to get a root system that's about the same size as this pot. You'll get the original root ball, and that's all you get. But if you plant them deep, you're going to get this root ball along with all this other root ball as part of the buried stem. And a bigger root system means more water, more nutrients for your plant. It means a sturdier plant that actually won't get knocked down by the summertime storms. And a stronger plant is actually a plant that can support way more flowers and ultimately way more tomatoes. This fix couldn't be any more simpler. Plant this thing deep. You've got 2 methods whenever you're going to plant these. For the tall, leggy seedlings like this one here, we're going to use this trench method. You can also use this method if your soil is really hard to dig in and you can't dig very deep. So instead of digging a deep hole, dig a shallow trench of 4 to 5 inches deep. Gently pinch off the bottom few leaves, and we're going to lay this thing down very carefully and bend the top just a few inches upward so it's actually sticking out through the ground. Well, then we're going to fill the trench back in, bury that long naked stem. That entire stem gets buried and even becomes a root producing machine. Now for shorter, stockier seedlings, use the deep hole method. This one's a little bit easier. All you got to do is just dig a hole deep enough to bury 2/3 of the stem. Pop in that plant and fill the hole back up with soil. Once it's planted, give it a really good deep watering to help settle that soil in. You just set your tomato up for success. You built a foundation and a fruit producing factory. By the way, if you're finding this helpful and maybe a little bit aha moment, planting's too shallow in the past, no judgment, we've all been there. I've done it myself. Do me a favor and hit that like button. It really helps this video find more gardeners like us. I'd also love to hear what kinds of tomatoes that you're going to be planting this year down in the comments. So you've hardened off your plants, you've planted them deep, they're growing like crazy. The plant is enormous, it's lush, it's beautiful, deep green. You're actually feeling pretty proud of. And then you notice something. Where are the flowers? Or maybe you saw a few flowers, but they just kind of fell off. There are definitely no tiny green tomatoes showing up. This is the 3rd mistake, and it's one that leads directly to the harvest of 0. Feeding your plants the wrong fuel at the wrong time. Tomatoes are hungry. They're hungry plants. What you feed them and when you feed them is everything. And a lot of beginners are full of enthusiasm. They just pour this high nutrition or all-purpose fertilizer all season long. Nitrogen is a great nutrient that tells the plant to grow green leaves. So when you overload these tomatoes with nitrogen, they get a very loud message: grow more leaves and get bigger. Sounds great, right? The plants put all their energy into becoming beautiful, huge bush plants, and that's all you get. It completely forgets about the actual job of making flowers and making fruit. You have to think of this in 2 stages. Now, stage 1 is like building a factory. Stage 2 is like running the factory to make the product. And the product is tomatoes. So let's talk about stage one, building that factory. Right after you transplant your seedlings, it's going to need a balanced meal to build a huge new root system and that strong leafy frame. This is when a little extra nitrogen is a good thing. When you're digging a hole, mix a generous scoop of good quality compost or well-rotted manure right in with it. Or you can do like I do and use some good old-fashioned organic fertilizer. For the first few weeks after planting, you give it a little bit of boost with a balanced fertilizer, like maybe fish emulsion or something like that, and that will really encourage that strong start. But after that comes stage two, making the fruit. As soon as you see the first cluster of little yellow flowers appear, it's time to change the menu. This is a signal you need to cut back on that nitrogen and start focusing on phosphorus and potassium. Now, phosphorus is a key for developing fruit and flowers. Potassium actually helps the overall health and quality of the fruit itself. So switch to that bloom or fruiting fertilizer. Organic options like kelp meal for potassium or fishbone meal for phosphorus are fantastic choices. Just sprinkle it at the base of your plants. Be good to go. This switch tells the plants right there the factory is built. It's time to stop making leaves and start making tomatoes. Add a little calcium to the plants, then that helps prevent that blossom end rot. By feeding your leaves first and then the fruit, you're working with the plant's natural cycle to give them the right fuel when it matters the most. So growing a massive harvest of homegrown tomatoes isn't about luck or having some type of magical green thumb. It's about knowing what you're doing and avoiding those few critical but simple mistakes right in the beginning. Okay, so let's do a recap of our new game plan. First, you're never ever gonna skip hardening off again. That's a 1-week transition from the cozy indoors to the great outdoors. And it's what builds the plants that can actually handle becoming a plant. A lot of times when you buy the plants from a big box store or a nursery, these plants have already been through that hardening off process. That's why they survive. Second, you're gonna always plant your tomatoes deep. Bury that stem. Create a supercharged root system that will power all summer long. These plants need that big root system in order to survive these hot summer months, especially down south. Those hot summer months can be brutal on a tomato if it doesn't have a good root system. And third, you're going to feed your plants like a pro, giving them what they need to grow big and strong early on, then switching to a fruit-focused food the second you start to see those little yellow flowers coming on. By avoiding these 3 common traps, you're not just helping your plants survive, you're actually setting them up for a season of explosive growth and amazing harvest. This is definitely your year. You can absolutely do this. I have 100% faith in you. So if you got some value out of this video, please give it a thumbs up. And think about subscribing for more gardening tips that actually work. I've got so much more to share to help you have your best garden ever. Now, let's get out there and let's get these tomatoes planted in the ground the right way. And like always, keep it growing.